Hey, it's Dre with Yourself.Podcast. And today's meeting is about parental alienation. So, before we begin and our guest comes in, I'd like to let you know of a disclaimer. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for free confidential support. And for immediate assistance, please contact 911. Thank you for that. So tonight's guest, his name is Paul, and he'll be joining in any minute now. We're glad that you are here to listen in and to partake of what will be an enrichment and understanding of parental alienation. So, we're hoping that our guests will join in. Sometimes there's some technical issues, you know how it goes. People have trouble logging in, or people are late to join in. But hopefully, our guest shall be here soon. In the meantime, I'd like to send out a good shout out to all of our listeners. Please subscribe to our channel. I know you hear that a million times, but this one is special. It's special for you. And we hope that you enjoy and learn something out of this podcast. And if you would ever like to be a guest, you could always email us at braceyourmentalhealth@gmail.com, and we'll respond to you as quickly as possible for you to be a possible guest on the show. And we will be discussing all sorts of mental health issues, from anxiety to depression to anything that needs emotional support, grief, special needs, special circumstances, chronic illnesses, anything of that nature. Anything that you need support on. And so, if you are having issues with any of those things, please contact us and we will try to be your lending ear for coping skills. And hopefully, others will be able to share their coping skills that maybe you haven't given a try, or maybe you forgot and want to give those skills another chance. So I just got word that our guest is logging in. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us today and giving us your your thoughts and your views on the subject matter of parental alienation. We appreciate your time greatly, and hopefully we can help others who are going through the same situation. Um, as just like an intro, if you could share a little bit about yourself and your background, and then kind of go into how your relationship began to be how your relationship with your child was prior to the separation.
Well, so my ex-wife and we were married pretty young. I was 25 when we got married. Um, we found out that we were having a baby, so that was a bit of a shock. That was 1999, so it's been a while, long time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so uh, my daughter and I had well, let's go take it back a step. My ex-wife and I were married for 13 years. Um, we were separated for the last 3 years of our marriage together. The first year we were living together, but separated, I guess, if you will. Tried to work things out for the sake of our daughter. Um, And then that didn't work out. After a year, I moved out of the house, and she stayed at the house with our daughter. And yeah, so our divorce, it was it was pretty. Um, it was not contested. We didn't really go through the courts. We just kind of filed our own paperwork. We didn't have attorneys. I think we
Mm-hmm.
had an attorney initially to look at the paperwork just to make sure everything was in order and that we agreed it was uncontested. Um, but then, yeah, my daughter was 10 when we separated, um, or when our divorce was final. She was 10. Yeah, so that's kind of
The
our
background on it.
whirlwind marriage. That's how it all started. And kind of long story short to the end is that we we were married young. We had a daughter. We were young, first time parents,
Yeah.
and yeah. So that's
And how was your relationship with your daughter well before the alienation kind of came into play?
yeah. Um, it was good. We had a great relationship. We had a wonderful relationship. Uh, we were I I I think back on those times and I think kind of funny now to think of it, but it's you try to be a parent to your children or your child. I only have one child, um, but we were more best friends. I
Mm-hmm.
think we were a typical family. You know, we took trips together. We did everything together. Um, we were annual pass holders at Disneyland. We'd go there a lot, almost every weekend. Uh, from Las Vegas to Anaheim is quite a drive, but those were first 10 years of her life. We were inseparable. So
I
yeah,
see.
we had. I mean, I looking back and just over the years and my experience with other families and seeing the quote unquote normal family, we were about as normal as you could get, I guess. And we had my daughter and I had a great relationship. Yeah.
So, seeing that you had such a great relationship, how did you start to notice alienation from her, and how was it like all of a sudden, or did it start to? I mean, after the divorce, was it sudden? Like all of a sudden she stopped talking to you, or did it gradually
No,
become?
no. It was it was gradual. It started like when we initially decided that hey, this marriage isn't gonna, we're staying together for not the right reasons. It was starting to kind of show in our relationship and with my ex-wife. That's what I'm talking about. It was the environment was not healthy. I think my daughter was at an age where she could understand what was going on. She could, we were sleeping in separate bedrooms. We weren't at that point. My ex-wife and I were not living your typical married life, and I think my daughter picked up on that. So we had a great co-parenting relationship for the first
Mm-hmm.
year, 2 years prior to us finally signing divorce papers and going through all that. But um, we had agreed on certain things, uh, specifically visitation. She was going to be the primary custodial parent. So my daughter would live with her, and I would get her on days, weekends. We had a pretty good arrangement worked out. Um, my my ex-wife was a teacher, and my daughter was an elementary age kid, so she went to the same school that my wife taught at because it was just convenient. Um, and so the alienation part came on after my ex-wife, and so I want to say because I think it's important that there's two sides to every story. So what I'm giving you is my side, right? Um, my
Understandably,
ex-wife may or may not agree with some of the things I'm saying, but I'm giving you my perspective. Um, but the alienation part, we like I said, we had a good co-parenting arrangement. Things were working well. I was getting my daughter on the days that I was expected to get her, and and it wasn't one of those things where it's like I would show up out of the blue and be like, I can I take. I would do that. I would call first and say, hey, I've got some time. This day is free. Would it be okay to come in? And it was always, yeah, no problem. It was in the beginning, in the beginning. But things changed over time. Those couple of years, she had got into a relationship. I had got into a relationship, and that is when I think things kind of started to go in a different direction.
So
As
that's
far
when
as
you noticed the alienation started to happen.
yeah, it was so I don't know the exact year. But I can tell you the day. It was Easter Sunday. It was, I was supposed to be picking her up that morning, and she was going to spend the day with me. And when I had called, she was crying. She was very upset. My daughter. She was 10 like, at the time, and she, I could tell, she, your children,
Right.
and I knew her quite well, and I could tell she was I don't want to say under duress, but she was. It seemed conflicted. She was crying. Said, "Dad, I don't want to go with you." And these were words I had never heard her say before. This was not the normal conversation that we would have. And I was just calling to say, "Hey, I'm on my way over to pick you up. Just I'll be there in about 15 minutes." And she was just broken down. Just and That's when it started. And then after that, I didn't give her any grief over it. I said, honey, don't be upset. Something to that effect. I said, it's okay. If you want to stay with your mom today, that I was understanding the whole process, the divorce, and the events that led up to that, the separation and whatnot. I was very cognizant of her emotional well-being.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want there to be conflict. I didn't want her. This What happened was exactly what I wanted to not happen. I wanted to avoid, but yeah, it was started on Easter Sunday that year. I think it was 2005, 2006, maybe. Um, Maybe it was later, but yeah, that's when it started. And then after that, it was, you know, hey, today's my day. I'm supposed to come pick her up, and it was never her mom that said no. She would put her on the phone and she would say, no, Dad, I don't want to come today. I don't want to see you today. So it started like that, and it just progressively got worse. Um, then as we went through the court process to finalize our divorce, there were stipulations. We had at
Okay.
that point you have to put things on paper, right? You have to the judge, this family court judge will decide, based on input from both sides, like what days, what holidays, what you know,
So
they
it's more
basically determine.
structured, more of a structured thing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. There's processes in place, right? You have it on
Yeah.
paper that this is the day I get these days, I get these weekends or whatnot. But even after that was put in place, it was a fight. I mean, I didn't get. I would show up to pick her up, and she would refuse to come with me. And it was never the mother that would say, "Well, she doesn't want to go." So that's always what it was. She was always say, "She doesn't want to go." So I'm not gonna. And I didn't want to put my daughter in that position to say, "Well, I have court documents.
Right.
You could involve law enforcement, and one time they did come out because I was just like, I'm I haven't been able to see my daughter in over a month. Literally, I haven't been able to see her in over a month. Uh, and so the police came and they said, well, this is a family court issue. I can't enforce this. You have to go back to court. And that's just a dreadful process, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's humiliating to a sense. Um, and at some point, she had retained an attorney, and I represented myself because I didn't have the money to pay for an attorney. And exactly that was what we were trying to avoid from the beginning,
Hmm.
is going through this whole family court process. But yeah,
So, so with all of that going on, did that bring up any? I mean, I assume it brought up some painful moments for you.
yeah, there was plenty of them, lots of them. When you have a close relationship with your child and suddenly that relationship comes to an abrupt halt, it's hard to reconcile that in your mind. It's like, okay, with my ex-wife, we did attempt marriage counseling, and one of the things the counselor said in one of our sessions was, I would harp on the fact that, well, I'm a good provider. I don't go out on my wife. I work. I take care and I provide for my family best I can. And one of the things she said, well, to be a good dad, you have to be a good husband. And I was just, I guess I don't know how at the time, it didn't make sense to me, but it kind of does now.
Hmm.
But, we did try. I mean, there's thinking back, we did put in the effort, both her mom and I, but in the end, it didn't work out. So there's a lot of painful memories associated with that process, but um, being totally cut off from your child by your child
Yeah.
is is um, it's hard. Like I think of people who lost their children, like lost them, they passed or whatever. They have a place to mourn, place to go, but I just got cut off completely, and that was from my daughter. I mean, at 10 years old, I don't know really what you can really process in a 10-year-old mind, but when you've got what I interpreted, and again, to reiterate that there's two sides to a story, but my side is that we had a great relationship, and then suddenly it just was really non-existent. No matter what I did, courts would give orders, and they were not really enforceable.
So it didn't
And
make the
it just
situation any better by having. Well, it and essentially it sounds like it made it worse having the judicial system or the family court involved because then it seemed to alienate you even more with more power behind that. Is that what
so
I'm.
yeah. What the To your point, I think when I started trying to enforce and kept going back to court, um, it just seemed to put more of a wedge between us. The communication, I wasn't seeing her. I wasn't able to take her for a day. I had phone contact, and usually those conversations were short. Um, there were times I could hear her mother in the background. Come on, hurry it up. Let's wrap it up. Things like that. But and there are people literally. I think that when they go through this process, they're smart about it, right? They record conversations, they save text messages, they save communications. I didn't do any of that because
Hmm.
it was just not. It was a new. This The whole process was new to me, so um, I don't really I don't hold any grudge towards the family court. I think they were fair. I felt they were compassionate. You know, our judge was very fair and compassionate, but it just seemed like the harder I fought, the worse it got. And then when she got a lawyer, that was it. Really, I mean, you know, they wanted to subpoena our family marriage and family therapy sessions. They wanted
Mm,
to subpoena those records. And, you know, in those those sessions, I mean, it's supposed to be a safe place, and you're
right.
supposed to be able to communicate your feelings, good or bad. And you know, when they wanted to subpoena those records, I just felt like, man, I poured out my life to this therapist, and you know, now they want to look at that. So it just, yeah, the whole process was rather humiliating, but
And with those feelings that you've had and that you've gone through, had to process through in all these years, how do you keep from falling into a like a desperate or despair moment or and also what gives you hope for the future?
well, you can't avoid it. The despair is going to be there if you go through this type of scenario. And there's probably hundreds of thousands of fathers who have gone through this, and mothers, you know, can't. I don't know. So my perspective was, it was to a point where it became personal. I guess maybe that's not the best word, but it was like, okay, I can't really get back at him. And again, I want to emphasize there's two sides to the story. So my perception was it was becoming more of what can I do to hurt him, and our daughter was the only thing she had left.
Hmm.
You know, in our divorce, I gave up the house, I gave up the savings, I gave up my right to her retirement. Um, she let me keep my business, which ultimately closed. Um, but you know, I did everything that I thought I could do to make this process easier on my daughter. But really, it was, thinking back, it was foolish. And you know, when really all you want to do, all you care about in that situation at that point is maintaining a relationship with your child, and that was very, it started out okay, but then abruptly, you know, it went from bad to worse to worse. You can't run from it, you can't hide from it. I mean, the despair is there. And she was 10 at the time, she'll be 27. So a lot of years have passed, but the pain is still very present, you
Do,
know,
do
with
you
me.
see any hope coming out of this situation?
But personally, no, I
No.
don't. Um,
I'm sorry
I
for
like to
that.
think a lot of people, you know, I've talked to many people over the years, you know, family, friends, and they say, give her time, give her time. And there were benchmarks, you know, I thought, okay, she's 16 now. Um, and I would watch, I had to watch her grow up on social media, you know, her Facebook page, her Twitter page. I would see pictures that she would post. So that's how I got to watch her grow up in her formative years. But it you can't escape that. You can't run from it. It's there. It's hurt. It's real pain. You know, you can feel it. It doesn't. I don't. No amount of therapy is gonna fix that. No. I mean, even like, you know, I was saying the other day, like, if she called me today and said, Dad, I want a relationship with you. I would like to, you know, let's start over. I would love that. I would absolutely. That would just, uh, be one of the best things that could ever happen in my life. It's, you know, but um, it's still, you can't. There's all those years that I missed. You know, that I had to watch on Facebook.
What it
Or
sounds like though is that I think that that is your hope, is that clinging of hope, because a lot of us, that's what we keep carrying on is hope. That's what gives us the the courage or the will to keep going the next day. And
Sure.
perhaps that is your hope, that someday she will call, or somehow you will meet up, or reconnect again, and
Yeah.
she will, uh, and I'm not saying that she will or she won't, but I'm saying that I believe that maybe subconsciously that's the hope that you are holding on to. And what
Sure.
I
Yeah. I mean, what else do you have,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
In that situation, but you don't have. I've always held on to hope. I've never lost hope. But as the years went on, it got. I had to watch um, another man teach my daughter how to drive. I got to see videos of her driving, and my ex-wife's whoever the man was she had in her life at that time, teaching my daughter how to drive. I had to watch another man teach my daughter how to ride a bike.
Hmm.
These are things that I think that as a father, that should have been you know, my privilege and responsibility, I guess. And so that was hard, but you do the best you can to deal with it and to accept it, but it doesn't. It just leaves such an empty void in you, you know. And I know there's so many people out there that are experiencing the same. You can't. Yeah, the people told my aunt. One of my aunts told me, time will heal this, and it doesn't. It hasn't so far anyway. I don't know. It's been 17 years, but it doesn't go away. I dream of my daughter. I have dreams about her. When I dream of her, I can see her face as clear as day. Um, you know, but in my dreams, I don't hear. She doesn't talk, so I don't hear her voice. Like it occurs to
Hmm.
me, I don't remember what it sounds like. After all these years. When my daughter was born, I knew every inch of her. I
Yeah.
knew the smell of her hair. I knew um, when I would embrace her, I could feel her heartbeat on my chest. And those were things that as a dad, you just don't forget. You just don't forget. And so yeah, you can't really run from it. You just at some point, the grieving process. There's the anger. There's acceptance, anger, um, depression, all those things that come with it. I've gone through all of them except for acceptance. I haven't accepted yet. It's not, you know, I just deal with it
That's
present.
that's
But
probably the hardest. I would assume the hardest to live with is the acceptance. And I just want to ask you one final question. Um, and I appreciate your time again today for sharing your thoughts and your feelings and being so vulnerable with us and our audience. But if there was something that you could leave as a legacy for, or as being a father, if she were to ever happen to come across this video, um, or if she were here today, what would you like to leave for her, or what words would you like to impress upon her?
yeah, that's a great question. Um, it's a hard answer because there's so many things that I would want to tell her that I love her as much today as I did the day she was born, and that love never stopped. Regardless of her. I mean, I know it's kind of hard to. I don't know what else I could say. I would tell her I'm sorry that I didn't fight for her like I probably should have. Um, I my thoughts were with her well-being, and I thought, well, the more I fight, the more that this is just going to be hard on her. Um, but now thinking back, I would have fought harder. I should have. That's been my daughter. She's my only child, and I just would. I guess if she was sitting here right now, I would tell her that I'm sorry that I didn't do more to try to. I think she would have understood. You know, that like maybe my dad. I don't know that she. I don't know what she thinks. Like I don't know. I can't say that. Maybe she thinks that I didn't care because I didn't fight. Um,
Mm.
but I would have if I knew now what I knew then, didn't know then. We can all look back and in the rearview mirror and say, "Gee whiz, if I had it all to do over again." And that's what I would tell her. My love for her never stopped. It never diminished. It never went away. Um, if I had it all to do over again, it would have been a different outcome because I would have fought tooth and nail. Uh, but after a period of time, she didn't want a relationship. We did have email contact, for a few years, and then we had a couple of times got close to possibly getting together for lunch or dinner, and it always just at the last minute. And so it occurred to me that her mom had such tight control over everything with her. So I can't imagine that she would just let her have free reign over her email. But it occurred to me that possibly that maybe it wasn't my daughter that I was communicating with, that it was her mother that whole time. Who knows? I'll never know. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think if she were here, I would just tell her how much I love her, and that never stopped. And it won't. You know, she could call me in 10 years, and I would still happily take the call or visit. So
Well, I certainly would.
actually, if I could add
Sure,
to that,
sure.
I I would tell her that, but I would want to listen. I would want to hear from her. I would love to know her feelings. I think maybe in all of this, that maybe that was what was was lost. That I didn't. I thought I was being respectful of her feelings, and but I would love to hear exactly what she felt. I can't imagine it was pleasant. I know it wasn't because when she would call, she'd be crying, and I don't know, just seemed I don't know that that would give me closure. Hearing
Mm-hmm.
that, but I don't know. Maybe it would help, right? Maybe it would help just to hear. Listen, this is how I felt at the time. If whatever she would say, I would hear. I would listen, and we would have a good conversation. I think if that ever happened, which I hold out hope that it will, but I'm not sure that it will. So
Well, we
yeah.
certainly hope. I personally certainly hope that will happen someday. My belief is life is eternal, and I believe that people do have a change of heart. It might take them 20 years, it might take them 100 years, but I believe that that connection will come back in one way or another. And hopefully, your connection may be fulfilled with other things in your life that may not fill necessarily that hole that you feel that are feeling, but hopefully you will find some hope and happiness in your life.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to mislead anybody. I am happy with my life. You know, I have that absence. I'll always have
Mm-hmm.
that absence, but I have a happy life. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so um, but yeah, I'll always have that. that monkey on my back, I guess. I don't, can't
Yeah.
think of a better word, but I made mistakes. Uh, we all make mistakes. If I could go back and change, you bet I would. You bet I would. I would have fought hard. And anybody who's in this situation, I would encourage them to not give up. Your child will understand someday, um, that you fought for them. I think in the end I probably gave up too easy because I was just worried about her. But yeah, I mean, if she were here, I would love her all the same as like I said, like the day she was born. I loved her before she was born. So
Well, I really appreciate your time with us, Paul, and I'm sure that you will be able to help others who are in the same situation. And if you ever would like to come and be a repeat guest and go into even more details, we would
yeah,
be glad to have you. And we appreciate your time and we thank you for being on tonight.
thank you, thank you.
You have a great night.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye. Well, we appreciate Paul and sharing his thoughts and his feelings on parental alienation. We hope that you have learned something new tonight, and we also hope that you will continue to tune in. Next week's episode will be on the, I want to say, the viewing or the experience of seeing sibling abuse and being witnesses to it. Um, and I want to say to everyone, please be kind. You never know what the struggle is with the other person, and let your light shine out. And we hope to see you next week. We will have another guest. And like I said, if you'd like to be a guest, please contact us at braceyourmentalhealth@gmail.com. And that will be a wrap for us tonight. And we hope to see you again next week. And we thank you for tuning in.